Officially, Australia has only one officially recognised native beer style, and that is Australian Sparkling Ale. Crikey! Sorry. It's an ale that shares many of the characteristics as a lager. And we're going to brew one today, and we're going to use a single vessel for fermentation, carbonation, and serving. Let's do it.
It's a Monday kind of feeling on a Tuesday afternoon. I can hear Wednesday calling, but then Thursday comes too soon.
Hi, I'm Martin Keane. I'm taking the Homebrew Challenge to brew 99 beers in 99 weeks, and today's beer is going to use this guy, the Fermzilla All-Rounder. This is a pressurized fermentation vessel that can hold up to 35 psi of pressure. It was provided to me by Kegland, link in the description below. Now, I've used this guy before to perform a fully pressurized transfer. So I fermented the beer in here, and then I used its pressure capabilities to transfer directly into a keg without any exposure to oxygen. This time, I'm going to use this thing for, well, pretty much everything. So I'm going to ferment the beer in this all-rounder, and then I'm going to leave it in here. I'm going to force carbonate by adding some pressure here to this gas post, and then I'm just going to take the whole thing and move it into my keezer and serve the beer directly from here as well. Now, this beer style, Australian Sparkling Ale, is going to be a really good test to see how feasible this is, because I want to see if I can get a really clean, light beer out of this thing with all of the trub and whatnot still in here from the fermentation. So it's going to be an interesting experiment. But before we do that, we actually need to make some beer. So let's go talk about ingredients. Now, if you've seen any of my recent videos, you'd have seen I've been struggling a little bit to describe the amount of ingredients that go into my recipe. I am brewing mainly 2.5 gallon batches these days, but I know most people aren't. So instead of talking about absolute amounts, I've been talking about percentages. That works fine when you're talking about the grist, and it gets super awkward when you're talking about things like hops. So, well, I've got a new plan. And that new plan is to continue to brew 2.5 gallon batches, but talk about amounts as though I were brewing a 5 gallon batch, because that is the most common batch size. So, what do I have in this beer? Well, the base malt is a combination of Maris Otter and regular 2-row malt. So I have 5 pounds of Maris Otter and then 4 pounds of 2-row. For specialty malts, I have 2. I have Thomas Faucett Crystal 45 malt. I have 8 ounces of that. And then I have 8 ounces of white wheat malt, just to improve the mouthfeel, to get that desirable mouthfeel that we're looking for. This will give me a beer about 1051 OG, and it's going to turn out to be about a 5.1% beer. Now, if you want the easy way to brew this recipe yourself, you can get the ingredients from the same place I did, which is Atlantic Brew Supply. There is a link in the video description to this very recipe, and clicking on that will get you a kit that contains all of that malt, plus the hops and the yeast you need to brew this up yourself. These brew days can start pretty early. My son's been encouraging me to try these energy drinks like this one. This is Bang. It's full of caffeine and amino acids and who knows what else. Ooh. And you're supposed to be 18 to drink one? Anyway, Let's talk then about Australian sparkling ale, because it's a beer style that I'm actually quite familiar with, as I've had it a number of times while visiting Aussie family down under.
G'day, mate.
G'day, mate.
G'day, mate!
That's my niece and nephew. Now, when you think of commercial examples of Australian beer, the first brand that probably comes to mind is hopefully not Foster's, because ain't nobody drinking Foster's down under. The best known commercial example of Australian sparkling ale is in fact Cooper's Pale Ale. Now this beer is probably a little similar to a cream ale in that it has the properties of a lager but is actually brewed as an ale. Oh yeah. Now, I was actually down in Australia last month visiting family, and I'm very much used to getting a schooner full of Australian sparkling ale down there. But what was really interesting to see this time was how many craft breweries were opening up now, and all the cool different types of beer that are being made down under in Australia. For the hops, I have 2 packets. Galaxy hops, these are good Australian hops. And then I have Pacific Jade. These are actually from New Zealand. Now I am going to add in as my bittering hop at 45 minutes, half an ounce of the Pacific Jade. I'm looking to ultimately get to an IBU of about 34 with this beer. Now with 10 minutes to go, that's when we're going to start looking at flavour and aroma. And at that point, I'm going to add half an ounce of the Galaxy hops. And then at flame out, so 0 minutes, that is when I will add the remaining 0.5 ounces of the Pacific Jade and the Galaxy. If you've not smelt the aroma of Galaxy hops, well, I'd highly recommend it. This smell of tropical fruit is making me very excited to try this beer. So we're at the end of the boil now, so it's time to add the final addition of Galaxy and Pacific Jade. Time to get this guy sanitized then, so I've put some Star San in here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to reuse the water from my chilling to sanitize this. Chilled the beer, it's at 66, 66 to 68 is what I'm looking for, so now time to move it into the all-rounder. I've got 2.5 gallons of beer in here now. The gravity came out at 1054. So now time to add the yeast. I am using Wyeast 1098, that is British ale yeast. Now time to get this thing airtight where it will remain until the beer is drunk. I will not be opening this thing up again. Now Kegland do recommend that you use petroleum jelly just around the seal of this thing. So I'm just going to put a little bit of petroleum jelly around this before putting it on the top. And then I've got this tool to tighten this lid. Add it into my fermentation chamber now, gonna keep this at 68 Fahrenheit. Now we do need something to relieve the pressure as fermentation builds. Last time I used a spunding valve and just set it to a couple of PSI. This time I'm just going to take a little growler here of sanitizer, and then I've put on here a connector for a gas post. And I'm gonna connect that to the gas post on here. And that way any CO2 that's generated will go out and then just bubble into the growler. Okay, so that is fermentation ready to go. We're going to leave this running and then come back when fermentation is complete and move on to the next stage. And that next stage is a couple of weeks later now. So I have removed the beer from the fermentation chamber and I have pressurized this vessel. So this is now at 30 psi. I'm now going to cold crash the beer, and while the beer is cold crashing, it's also going to be carbonating because it's under pressure. So I should actually be able to go to the tasting of this beer in about 2 days. Well, it's tasting time, and I have with me Lauren.
Hello.
And Fermzilla. So this guy is now carbonated. It's still got the yeast cake on the bottom. We're going to drink directly from it.
Awesome. I am super excited.
You're looking a little skeptical, I must say.
I mean, because it looks kind of weird. I've never seen it in this light.
Yes.
I'm used to it just coming out of the tap. So we'll see how it goes.
So to dispense this, I am just got a little picnic tap here with a liquid post. So let's put this on. I'm kind of worried that it's going to spill everywhere. So if you could just hold this pointing into a glass. Don't pull the trigger yet.
Okay.
But I just want to make sure that it's not going to come out. Okay. Give it a go.
It's very foamy. I feel like we should have had a test cup, so we'll just let that one sit.
Oh, not bad.
No, I got
Not
some on the
bad.
table.
Well, okay.
It is taking the foam away pretty quickly though, so it looks quite carbonated.
Yes, it certainly does. And actually this one, what a beautiful pour. It's really very clear as well. You see right through it.
I can, yeah.
I was not expecting to get that much clarity considering that we have just left this sat on the yeast cake and all the gunk there at the bottom. But
yeah, they're lovely looking good.
this looks really nice.
Well, from my take, it smells quite light.
Yes, it's got that kind of golden ale or lagery kind of smell to it.
Yeah.
A light beer. Well, we should taste this. I will be a gentleman and let my nose get covered in foam.
Well, we didn't really talk about the color though. I know you said about this, but personally, like, you did say it was very clear. And I secondly agree that it is very golden and I see a lot of bubbles.
Yeah, this looks absolutely beautiful to me. This is what you'd expect with the Aussie pub. Just a nice golden clear beer.
I think it looks really good. Alright, so let's try it.
Give it a go.
But this one has like hints of like a citrus. It's kind of citrusy.
Yeah.
But it's also like the smell is quite light as well.
Yep, so I think that's the Galaxy hops that we added coming through.
Okay.
We added some Australian hops and some New Zealand hops, which are known for their fruitiness and citrusiness. Yeah, but yeah, it's definitely coming through, right?
Yeah.
This is not just sort of like a plain cream ale or a lager or anything, although it's the same colour as that. There's definitely a bit of fruit coming through.
That's very summery. It's a summery beer.
Despite appearances,
Yeah.
this is actually a very effective way just to keep the beer in here the entire journey. So this has never been exposed to oxygen. Like, I brewed the beer, put it in here with the yeast, and it has been in a closed loop ever since. So no off flavors are going to come through oxygen exposure. And yeah, this thing really worked.
No, I'm pleasantly surprised, and I'm really liking this beer.
Wow, very good.
Yeah.
We'll do a triple cheers.
Triple cheers.
Cheers, cheers, and cheers.
No Australian on that one?
No.
Crikey. Crikey, Fermzilla.